Welcome to the Ride of My Life podcast. I'm Caroline Rena, and here, let the ride inside adventure begin. I will share what it's like on my own healing journey, and through what I learn and become aware of, provide insight to your journey as well. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Ride of My Life podcast. I'm Caroline Rena, and today my special guest is Linda Griffin. And Linda is a published author, keynote speaker, and writing and self-publishing coach who teaches coaches, consultants, and other professionals how to capture their wisdom in a book, making it accessible to more people who can benefit from it. In the process, her clients increase their authority and thought leadership position in their chosen market. Linda developed the Author Fast Track program based on her experiences in writing and publishing a book. She takes people from idea to book in hand in as few as 90 days. Wow. Okay. It's been 9 years since I started my book, by the way, just saying. Anyway, after leaving a successful corporate career, Linda was looking for a new challenge and settled on entrepreneurship. She explored several niches and offerings, but none of them met her need to be of service to others while supporting her desire work-life balance. These included career coaching, general small business marketing, and niche marketing to the bed and breakfast industry. After publishing her first book, Linda came across so many other people who wanted to publish and decided to focus solely on helping thought leaders get published. For fun, Linda loves to make greeting cards, read mystery novels, and solve puzzles of all kinds. Get that. She lives in Virginia in the Washington, D.C. metro area with her dog, Bugsy. I love that too. And yes, I was raised in Virginia, Northern Virginia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's something we have in common too. So I believe when we first met, you first reached out to me, but when I saw what you did and where you lived, I was like, oh, I want to meet her.
Yes.
So I decided to reach back out. So
Yeah.
How are you doing today, Linda? I'm so grateful and happy that you're here.
Thank you, Caroline. It is my pleasure to be on the podcast. I'm so excited. As you said, when I reached out to you, it was so intriguing, your whole idea of your life on the road. And I really wanted to get to know you a little bit better. And we had a conversation that led to our guest spot today.
Yes, and it was. I'm just really happy because I love these meetings. I love the fact that we have opportunities like this to start connecting with people because literally, before everything happened with the pandemic, it was all in our backyard, and it was like we didn't get to meet people or see people anywhere else because we were so focused on that, or in the area type of thing. I mean, here and there we did it, but not to the degree that we do that now. And I'm like, well, yeah, because I love meeting people, so it's a perfect place for me.
Yes. This whole Zoom and Microsoft Teams and Google Meet and all of those platforms are really letting us reach out, as you said, beyond our boundaries, our normal boundaries, and where we used to do coffee in person, now we do coffee chats over Zoom or over Google or something. And so it really, in some ways, it has opened up our horizons even more so than before the pandemic.
Right. And thank you for saying that, because some things that have been coming up for me, it's like, the more I do my healing work, the more I feel like I'm connected with the rest of the world anyway. And I love the idea of being able to meet all these incredible people. I mean, I've met people in the UK and Australia.
Yes.
I can't even, there's like 4 or 5 countries that I've been talking to people, mostly English speaking countries.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's so amazing how this worked itself out like this. But
yes.
I'd love to get started to get to know you a little bit better. And recognizing I read your bio, but I'd like for you to go in like a little bit deeper into the kind of work that you do and how you help people.
Sure. Well, I kind of start growing up, because growing up, I was the oldest of 4 kids. And so I tell people I have been a leader all my life because I bossed my brothers and sisters around. from a very early age.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's so funny because I really am a bits and bytes person. I was a mathematics major in college, and my career in corporate was with a technology company. So I've always said that I'm a bits and bytes person. And how did I get to become someone in the creative field and helping people write books, right? So it was a bit of a winding journey, because when I left my corporate career and started my company, I was doing small business marketing. And it was great because meeting so many different people who were trying to make a difference in the world with products and services. But what I found is that every time I got a new client, I had to learn a new language. So it was office products one week and accounting the next week and something else the following week. And I decided I wanted to specialize. And I decided to specialize in the travel and hospitality industry because I love to travel for fun. I've traveled a lot around the US and overseas. And I picked the bed and breakfast industry because it was a niche area of travel and hospitality. So my mentor at the time said, well, you should write a book because that's the easiest way to establish authority in a new marketplace, because I didn't have any clients in that industry. And silly me, there was a big international conference in January of the following year. And I said, oh, okay, I'm going to write my book and launch it at that conference. Well, it was October and the conference was January. So I then set about trying to figure out how to get a book done in 90 days, and hence my fast track program of getting a book done in 90 days. It was a lot of trial and error. I knew I couldn't get a traditional publishing contract because that would take way too long. I knew I had to self-publish, and I just, it was really an experience that I just fire hosed myself into learning what to do and also learning how to write. Now, I had been doing some writing because I did have a blog, and so I was writing some things, but not on the magnitude of a book. But through blood, sweat, and tears, I did get that book done, and I launched it at that conference, and it opened a lot of doors for me in that industry. So that was how I first got into writing books.
And you learn how to help other people in the process, which is really cool. And you know, and to be honest with you, I'm a writer. And as I mentioned, kind of right in the middle while I was doing your bio, because I was like 90 days, holy cow, you know, because maybe it's been longer than 9 years. I don't even know anymore, but I had initially wanted to start doing something like a, what do they call that? A fiction, nonfiction, or creative nonfiction, nonfiction. Yes. So it was more like a memoir, but this, and I had run into things because it was my you know, the situation that I was going through at the time. And my goal was not to like bash the other people in this book, but I couldn't, I wasn't in a space in myself to be able to recognize what to do with it. So I couldn't do that. And I couldn't figure out what else to do. So fast forward, you know, however many years later, 12, 14, I don't know, it's I discovered that, you know, I really want to get something out, but I'm like so focused on doing this stuff now that it's getting put on the back burner. So for people, like before we get into your story, your personal story, or as much as you can tell, what do you say to people who have been like pushing this back onto the back burner? Because we all have something we need to express. And writing a book is fantastic. And granted, we can't read all these gajillion books that are being put out on the market, but something will suit and fit someone who needs to hear our story. How do we get out of that, you know, and get into writing it?
Yes, that's right. Well, Caroline, you bring up a very good point, because my view of the world is that everybody has some wisdom to share. They either have something technical to share, they have lessons learned to share, they have, as you said, a memoir of here's my journey, and you might be going through a similar journey. And so my goal is to help people get that wisdom out to the people who need it. and who are looking for it and searching for it. So one of the first things that I tell people when they're considering writing a book is think about your who and your why, right? Who is the person that is going to benefit the most from this book? And how would their life be better after they read it, right? That always helps get people motivated. You're right. It has to become a priority. It has to be off of the back burner. And usually there's some catalyst that pushes it onto the front burner, right? Sometimes it's as simple as a birthday. I want to get this book done before my next big birthday, right? Or it's like with me, it was a conference. I wanted to launch that book at the conference. Or, sometimes it's, I want to write it for my kids. And so I need to get it out while they are still able to use it. So you look for your why, who is the person that is going to most benefit from it? And then how do you think their life is going to change? And that a lot of times will help move it to the front burner as opposed to the back burner. Now, it is an investment for sure in time. And you have to be mentally ready. One of the things that I work with my clients on is providing that accountability to them, that ongoing coaching that says, okay, we were going to try to do this week. How much progress did you make? And sometimes that alone will help people focus on it. And then other things that we do is we pick you have to let this book fit into your lifestyle, right? So if you're, as example, a busy mom and you've got to deal with the kids on, during the day, maybe that first thing in the morning or that last thing at night is you carve out that time to focus on your book. Or if you're in corporate, maybe it's your lunch break. You spend that time focused on your book. So none of us can just go out into a desert island and write a book for 6 months or something, right? But we have to make it fit into our lifestyle.
Yes. Yeah. And it's not easy to do that either, because not only, like for me, I do my best writing sometimes in the morning and sometimes at night. And if I schedule that time in, it doesn't always work, because some mornings I'm not ready to do that and some nights I'm not ready. And then the other piece of it too was, this is something that's happened to me, and I'm sure, and I've heard that it happens to a lot of people. It's like, as writers, we almost have like, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us who are hesitant have this like perfectionistic thing happening where we have to set our office up a certain way. We have to arrange everything and make sure that the windows are in a certain direction or whatever. And that doesn't matter, does it?
Well, actually it does. It actually does, because
not when you do it 10 times. I'm talking about
because you want to have whatever your environment is be conducive for creativity, right? And so sometimes that is, you need to have your desk beside a window so you get the sunlight. Or maybe if you're writing in the midst of family, you got to have the headphones on and music playing so that you can still be with family, but you can be working on your book. So it absolutely does make a difference what your writing space looks like, and it has to be something that is conducive to creativity.
Yeah, no, and I 100% agree with that. I'm just like me. I'm the person back in the day who would like move things around. I'd move a pencil from here to here because I couldn't get anything on the paper. So I'd be like, oh, well, maybe that's sitting over here. That'll help. No.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that also helps that I do is we don't really work from an outline per se. We work from a mind map, which is much more organic. So we just put down what are the 5 things or the 10 things that you want to cover in this book in no order. And then you pick one of those things on the day that you're writing, you pick one of those areas to write in. After we get all of that done, then we structure the chapters to say, okay, what's the logical flow? And a lot of times that helps creativity, because you try to start with chapter 1 and then your mind goes blank and you're stuck and you throw your hands up. But if you say, okay, I don't feel like writing on this topic today, I feel like writing on another one, now you still have productivity in that space.
That's really powerful, because my age group, our age group, we were taught this outline structure.
Yes. Yes.
And when creatives can't get put into a box, it's impossible.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I've never ever, and I've been wondering my entire life, why can't I write an outline? And
Yes.
this is perfect because this is like, oh my gosh, because I'm creative, because I can't just
that's right.
let flow whatever's coming out.
Let it flow. That's
mold
right.
it.
Yes, that's right. Let it flow. Yeah.
That's awesome. I like that mind map idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so why don't you touch base real quick on your history? If you want to share your story, just whatever you feel comfortable sharing, and
sure.
On from that.
Yeah, sure. Well, as I mentioned, I grew up the oldest of 4 kids, and my parents, my mom was a school teacher. So people all of my life have said, "Aren't you a teacher?" I'm like, "No, my mom was a teacher, but I'm not." Although I'm doing some form of teaching now with the coaching, right? Yeah. So I grew up in Alabama, so deep South. Ooh. And I went to Auburn University, which at the time that I went, which was back in the 70s, there were only about 200 African-American students on campus of a campus of 14,000. So as you can imagine, it was a big culture shock for me coming from my neighborhood into this big environment where truly I was a minority, right? So that took some adjusting to that and making my way and still being successful and being able to graduate on time. And that was one of my goals, graduating on time. And then I was fortunate enough to be hired right out of college by IBM. They came to the campus to do some interviews, and because I was a math major, they were really looking for math majors at the time. And so I was lucky enough to get a job with them, and came up to the DC metro area. And I really had such an interesting career. These days people don't stay in one company for their entire career, but I ended up doing that because with a company that large, it was very easy to move around from group to group and focus on different areas of the business without ever leaving the big company, right? And that's really where I learned entrepreneurship, believe it or not, because in the latter part of my career, we created this new service offering, and it was a very small, self-contained group, almost like a small business. So we had our own sales force, and we had our own delivery service, and we had our own sites where we gave the information. And so I really learned from soup to nuts how to run a business from a marketing and sales perspective and from a service delivery perspective. So I really enjoyed that, but at some point, I decided that I really wanted to go out on my own and do my own thing. And so I did that. And it took me a while to, you see me now as a book coach, and I'm really happy doing that. But I really jumped around from thing to thing to thing, right? Trying to figure out what resonated with me the most. I started out doing some career coaching because as a female in a technology environment who was successful, I thought, okay, let me help other females who are like me, who are trying to be successful in a very male-dominated industry. And I did that for a while, but it was not the thing, right? And then because I was meeting small business owners while I was doing that, I thought, oh, okay, let me focus on small business, because I can take what I've learned in big corporate America and I can apply that to small businesses on a much smaller scale. And I did that, but what I found with that is that I had to learn a new language every time I got a new client. So, accounting one week and office products the next week. And I really didn't really want to do that. And that was when I settled on this bed and breakfast industry. That was great, but they run on very thin margins and really didn't have the funds to apply to an outside marketing company And so it just was not a sustainable business for me. So I really feel like that whole journey led me to where I am, because in the process of working with the bed and breakfast owners, I wrote that first book. And then people started coming to me saying, hey, can you help me? Can you help me? And now that has morphed into, well, that's all I do now, is I help people get their books out. Nonfiction only, by the way. I don't do fiction, because that's a whole different animal with scenery and dialogue and characters. I don't really do that real well with that. I still have my, bits and bytes mentality, so I don't do well with that. But I certainly can help people get their other nonfiction and memoirs and things like that out.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Because I mean, you literally gone full circle.
Yes.
Kind of gone full circle,
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you found who you were, or a path that you're meant to go on right now. And it's a really powerful experience that I hear. I mean, and when were you at Auburn? What years to study?
Oh, that was in the 70s. So it was like I graduated in 74. So
yeah. So then you have, like you're saying, being one of 200 African Americans in the school, even though it's in Alabama, you still had those things to contend with going on at the time. Because I remember that kind of thing. Like I said, I lived in Northern Virginia, and that type of thing didn't really faze me, because we had I don't even remember, maybe a quarter of our school. It was still not a lot of African Americans, but still, like, I grew up with that. And so it was like, that didn't faze me, but imagine just being in that kind of environment and trying to, figure your life out and learn this stuff and math. Now, I don't even want to go there, because I can't do math. Okay. Anyway. So my question, it was interesting. You said something about not wanting, or not helping, or writing yourself fiction, not going into that fiction realm. I've always had a challenge with that. After I got out of the military, it was like I kind of came up with my own little stories when I was younger. And then when I joined the military, all of my writing became after action reviews. And I was like, every time, and here's me being this emotional person trying to understand myself and writing it as if, it was this line by line. Bits, what did you call them? Bits and bytes. Bits and byte things. Yeah. It's like, here's my whiteboard, and this is what happened, and this is what we did, and this is what happened, and this is what we did, and this is what happened. So then my writing became that way. Do you help people shift from, like, how they were taught to write emotionally, or through their their own healing journey, or whatever, how they were taught, to who they really are and how they can write now, right?
Yes, absolutely. So going back to that who and that why, I tell people, picture your who is that person who is going to benefit the most from your book. And imagine that you're just having conversation with them. You're sitting down having coffee and you're talking to them. Write the way you would talk to them. So you're not writing in a, as you said, a very rigid way. You're writing in a conversational tone. And that becomes much more accessible to people too. And sometimes I even tell people, hey, just dictate, right? Don't even try to write. Just dictate into your phone, or into several apps that you can get to dictate, and then have that transcribed. Now, it's not going to be exact, because when we talk in a different cadence and all of that from writing, but it certainly would be a way to get the information out of your head in your own voice, and then would just need to be cleaned up with an editor and polished up to make sure sentence structure is correct and all of that. So a lot of times that helps. Those two things, writing as if you're having a conversation, and then dictating and having that transcribed as a starting point.
That's a good point. Yeah, because and in fact, it's interesting because mine's kind of flipped backwards because I also like doing speaking, but I haven't really
Mhm.
stepped out and done that yet. So I don't
Mhm.
know what that looks
Mhm.
like.
Yes.
But what I used to do was instead of writing like ideas down and talking about the ideas, I would
Mhm.
literally write out everything that I wanted to say in
Yes.
like long
Script.
form. And
Yep.
then no, it wasn't even a script. It was like just it was a what do they call those short story type of thing?
Yes. Yes.
So I'm writing it in short story form, and then I'm standing in front of people. And the first time I did that, I'm like, I'm like, that's not a talk. So learning
Right.
how to do it back, but that may be something that can help. Also,
Yes.
is if you're a writer that like I remember somebody, maybe I'm getting to this point. I remember somebody telling me that like I have all this information in my head. I've got all these things that I've collected and this and that that I
Mhm.
want to share and all this. And they were like, just throw it on the paper and then we'll
Yes.
go back and look at it and manipulate it
Yes.
and edit it. Because thank goodness for modern technology. I have to
Yes.
give kudos in this case. Not in
Yes.
many, but you can
Yes.
go into Word or whatever, book
Yes.
software program or whatever, and you can
Right.
move your paragraphs around.
Yes.
And you couldn't
That's
do
right.
that when we wrote them out or
That's
typed
right.
them, back in the day.
That's right. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. And the other thing I tell people is do not edit and write at the same time, because
yeah,
that's our tendency also. Oh, that sentence isn't quite right. Let me rewrite it. Let me backtrack to that paragraph and rewrite that. No,
yeah.
the idea for the first draft, and I tell people, it's going to be ugly. It's not going to be what you want it to be, but it's a starting point. I say it's like polishing a diamond, right? When a diamond comes out of the earth, it's black, it's rough, there's no shine to it at all. That's your first draft. And then you go through a process to polish it up and it comes out sparkling. That is the same thing that happens with your writing. Just get that first draft out of your head, as ugly as it may be, and then we got something to work with. And don't feel bad about that, because everybody's first draft is ugly. You're not alone with that.
And that's not easy for those of us who are perfectionists because
Perfectionist,
we want to
yes,
make, and
I
I
know,
also
I
used to
know.
do editing and what is the other thing called where you just check to see if everything's
Yes, right.
all the
Well, like
commas
spell
and everything.
checking. Yes, right.
Yeah.
Grammar
So
and yeah.
and I used to do that. And so of course I've got that on my side, not.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
when I write, I'm also doing exactly what you're saying
Yes,
not to. It
right.
takes
Stop that.
forever.
Stop that now.
Stop it. Okay. All right. Stop it. Oh man. All right.
Resist, resist.
Resist. Well, you know what? It's funny. I'm trying not to resist on certain things, but this particular thing, I think I need to.
Yes, yes, that's
So,
right.
this is great. This is really good information for people to hear because a lot, especially when we're going through our journey and we're trying to
Mm-hmm.
understand who ourselves, who we are,
Mm-hmm.
inside of us. That's what I'm doing as this podcast and in my
Mm-hmm.
life and so a lot of these interviews, what I'll do, and I'm going to give you a choice, but some of the interviews I will either continue conversation and we just enjoy, going back and forth and a little banter or whatever, just for the rest of the time, or you can do a process with me, a very short process, maybe that you do with your clients, just so people can get an idea of what you do. So whatever you choose, I can't remember if we decided to do that or
Yeah,
not.
I think we said we would try a little bit of a process, a little bit of me coaching you the way I would start out coaching a new client. So
Okay.
let's do that.
Okay. I'm in.
Okay,
Oh.
okay.
Oh my God. What have I got myself into?
Yes, right. But it's a safe space, right,
Okay.
Caroline?
Yes.
So no worries, no worries.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
So yeah, so the first question I ask is, what are your thoughts about the type of book you want to write? You alluded to it a little bit, that it might be a memoir. Is that what you're thinking?
No, not
Okay.
anymore. Now partially. I don't know what it's called. I want to say that it's the creative nonfiction part of it, but you will
Mhm.
tell me, because basically what's happening, and this is all just within the last few days, that
Mhm.
I'm finally digging into a part of myself that I had brought out years
Mhm.
ago, and I did some research on it, and then I kind of went back into my life the way it had always been. So what it is that I am a highly sensitive person. Not everybody understands what who highly sensitive people are. It's not being sensitive to the things that are going on in the world. It's not being I mean, we are sensitive to those things.
Right.
However, it's different because we're sensitive in the fact that we can feel more deeply than people. We can connect more deeply to our environment. We connect with animals differently. Like sound can be too much for us, or like sirens or lights can be too bright. That's the sensitivity I'm talking about.
Right.
And so recognizing that in myself and knowing that they're like, for me, who's gone through, so maybe it is a memoir, I don't know. So, and someone who's gone through trauma, who's dealt with complex PTSD, who's been through a situation they call it parental alienation with my children. So it's like progressive trauma throughout my life, and lack of nurturing and all these things. And then being told I'm too emotional, I'm a dreamer, I sit out in the, and finally coming to the point where I recognize that it's okay for me to be that.
Yes.
And so what I want to do, or I'd like to do, and what I'm doing right now is I'm putting poems out as a continuation called Poem Talks of the Ride of My Life. I'm actually sharing all these over 100 poems that I wrote in the last year as part of my journal.
Okay.
So I am doing it. I haven't put it in a book yet. So maybe that's the book.
Yes.
So adding more interesting thoughts and ideas here, and no decisions. But I want to help people to understand that if you are highly sensitive, that you can still discover and heal who you are and discover yourself in a different light than the world is used to looking at you as.
Yes.
It's not a how-to book. It's more of a connecting book.
Yes. So it's more of a what? I'm sorry.
Connection. It's like
connection.
Here's what I did, and if I can do it, so can you.
Yes. So I would call that a lessons learned. I'm just making a note here. I would call that a lessons learned book. Now there are, your journey. So here's the thing, and creative nonfiction, I'm not really hung up on any of those kinds of titles, right? Because what I have found is that regardless of what the overall structure of the book is, like you said, some books may be poetry, some books may be a how-to, some may be a straight memoir. But the thing is that regardless of the type of book, you can include personal stories in all of those types of books, right? In tips books, even people who write cookbooks. And my daughter just got a cookbook this past weekend, and it had personal stories in it along with the recipes, right? So you can always include personal stories. You can always include what I would loosely call case studies, things about other people, especially if you've worked with other people. And you can always include tips in a book, and you can always include questions that people want to answer. So what I like to do is say, what is the main message that you want to get? And you shared that with us, is that you can be a highly sensitive person and still navigate through the world successfully, and sharing what your experience has been in doing that, and maybe giving people tips and hints on how they can navigate that if they are also highly sensitive. So that's how I would position the book. And the other thing I would say is, who would you write the book for, right? So even though, yes, anybody who's highly sensitive could use this book or read this book, it's better to pick a group. Maybe, and I'm just throwing things out as brainstorm, it might be ex-military, retired military. It might be women who are, moms. It might be teens, so you want to pick a specific demographic of who you're writing the book for, because then that way, when I tell you, okay, envision that person sitting across from you, you got a picture. You can't have a picture of everybody in the world sitting across from you, right?
I can too.
And it seems counterintuitive, because people go, oh, but I want everybody to read it. It doesn't mean that other people can't pick that book up and read it, right? But what it means is that the people who can benefit the most will be highly attracted to that book. When I see, a book that says, okay, here's a stress reliever for women in corporate, I can say, oh, okay, that book is for me, right? As opposed to a general stress relief book. Or if I see, here's tips for the female traveler, as opposed to just general tips, I can say, okay, that book is for me. So what you want is you want to have people look at the title and the subtitle and the description and say, oh, that book was written for me. Because there's thousands and thousands of books that are written every day on every subject in the world, and you want to attract those people that can benefit the most from your book.
I see what you're saying, because even within the highly sensitive, the HSP realm, there are different variations of HSP. Like, for example, there's like a list of 27 traits, and you can range on anywhere on that. All you do is check off what your thing, what resonates with you or whatever, to figure out. So I happen to be a 26 out of 27.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, here we go. So, and so when you said that, I was like, okay, so now we're narrowing that down a little bit. So the highly high sensitive people,
yes,
probably women, who have a mother wound from a narcissistic mother who was never emotionally validated or nurtured, that type of thing. That's where it's like it's kind of narrowing down into.
Yes. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, okay. I like it. Cool. So what we would do after that, after we identify your who, then we would work on a description for the book, right? And what would be the biggest benefit that people would get from reading the book? How would their life be changed, right, after they read it? Because that's the next thing, is you're writing a book for a reason. You're writing the book to help other people. And so how would they be helped after they finished reading the book? And you may not have the answer today, but that's the kind of thing that we would brainstorm and say, okay, what's the biggest benefit that they're going to receive? How would their life be changed after they read the book? Because again, that will inform the way you write it, right? So if one of my clients wrote a book on finance. These are the 5 pillars of a first-class life, and first-class life just meant you have what you need, right, to be happy, right? And so while she was writing that, we kept coming back to, well, what are the things that it's not always monetary, right? You have to have a basic level of money to be able to survive, but what are the other things? And so we were always able to, as she was going through, because she also, like you, she had written other things, she'd written blog posts and things like that. And we were able to pull the things that apply to this book out of what she had already written as a starting point.
Did she have like a filing system that ran yay deep? With all this
well, it was years and years of journals.
That's yes. Oh my God. And that's the crazy thing, is I have literally a stack of journals 4 feet high. I have literally files in my computer since 2000. I don't even remember when. It's been a long time.
Yes.
So it's like I have all this collection, and then I've all got it all in my head. Yeah. And I don't know how that must have been challenging for, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, but again, we go back to the mind map, right? What are the 5 things that she wanted to share in this book? And then she went through her notes and her journals, and she picked out the things that applied to those 5 areas, right? And so that's what we would do with you. Once we came up with your mind map of what are the things that you want to cover, and then you would go through your journals and pick out the things that apply to each one of those. One of my clients is a breast cancer survivor, and she wanted to write a book about her experience of building a support team, family, doctors, etc., that would help a survivor get through this ordeal. And it was almost like a combination of a memoir and a how-to, because she shared her journey from the time that she got diagnosed to the time that she had her operation. And along the way, though, she shared tips on okay, what do you ask the doctor? I mean, you may be the first person in your family who's even ever had this diagnosis, and you're clueless. And so how do you do that? What is the sequence of events that you should talk to the various doctors? So so again, she was another one who had a lot of information based on her going through that journey, and we pulled out the pieces that applied, like transportation, or finances, or what do you talk to the doctors about, what about clothing. So we picked all of those categories and then pulled her information into those various categories.
Interesting. Yeah. And that you're giving me ideas I keep writing down. I'm
Good,
like,
good, good. That's the whole idea. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's fantastic because sometimes when we're by ourselves and we don't have someone to do this with.
Yes.
And for me, being as analytical as I am, I have stuff bouncing in my head all the time, all the time. And sometimes even at night. I've gotten better at it while I'm sleeping, but thank goodness. But during the day, it's like, what do I do here? How's this going to work? What's going to happen now? What did it? I'm trying to piece all this stuff together, and you can't. And I'm a talker, obviously. I have to talk my way through to my answer. That's just my design. That's who I was meant to be, which is maybe I'm a speaker too. Someday I keep someday write books, someday be a speaker, someday.
I
don't know what
that's right.
But and
that's
it's like
right.
and I think for me, I mean, I could do a real quick one is like with highly sensitive people who've gone through what I went through, trauma, different people who didn't understand them, people or misunderstood them, people who just totally kind of pushed them away because they thought they were weird, whatever.
Right.
It's like being able to heal from that trauma. And for me also, there was like a separation from God, from a higher power completely throughout my entire life. And it's actually shifting me back in, because what I've also discovered is that as I'm learning more about myself now, it's like highly sensitive people are already aware. We're already conscious. We're already in a higher sense of consciousness, but we don't know that because we've been crushed, and it's like, so getting out of that crush back into, and I do this, I like doing this, is my new thing now. So the discovery, it's like, and being able to write this for people, it's just, that's where my passion comes out, obviously.
Yes, I see. Yeah. No, that's great though. I mean, you should be passionate about what you're writing about.
That's for sure. Not an after action review in the military.
That's right.
So is there more to the process, or is this just the
that would just be the first couple of conversations. Then I have a structured process. That's my math background, structured process. And that's why I think I work well with people who tend to be on the more creative side, because I can understand that side, but I can also keep you on task, right? So that whole accountability, you can ramble on and you can talk, and then I remind you that, okay, but we said we were going to get X, Y, and Z done, so let's get that done, right?
Come back in.
Come back, get back on the path, right?
Wow, I love that. Because you can see both sides of the coin. You are both sides of the coin, so you're like aware that they're going to be going off on tangents. And I know how to reel them back in.
Yes, that's right.
I love that so much. Is there anything else that you would like to share? Because we actually went through this quicker than I thought.
No, I think we covered pretty much everything. I do want to go back to the 90-day thing for a minute, though, because even though I wrote my book, actually, I've written 2 books. The second one was my process. And, if somebody wanted to read that book and kind of go through the process on their own. And I did write both of those in 90 days, but I was highly motivated, and it was my top priority. For most of my clients, it's not realistic to do that. because they've got jobs and families and other things that are also priorities. So it usually takes about 6 months is more the average time that my clients take to get their books done. So I just wanted to throw that out because I don't want to scare people by thinking, oh, this is going to be a whirlwind, thing here.
Well, thank you so much for being honest about that, because I have, when you're on Facebook or Instagram and they have these things pop up and they're like, oh, you can write your book in 2 weeks. Oh, you can. Well, not everybody has the option of being on a secluded island for 2 weeks or 90 days or whatever to just write. We live in life. We have life.
That's right. And I'll tell you, most of those books are they're things like tip books, right? Because you could write a tip book in a weekend, right? Or they are very simplistic, quotes books, things like that. So yes,
ebooks that get put out,
right? So you can absolutely do it, but to do the type of book that you and I are talking about, it would be very difficult to get it. I mean, I would say impossible to get it done in a weekend or something like that, right?
Yeah. Yes, definitely impossible. And then you also, I think you mentioned this at the beginning. I'm sure it is the case, because if you're coaching someone how to write a book, you're also helping them, show them how to do the publishing and
yes, absolutely. So I do work with people who want to self-publish. Publishing with a traditional publishing house is a totally different animal, and it takes, we talked about 6 months. It usually takes 24 to 48 months for you to go through a traditional publishing contract, because you have to fit into their engine and all of that. And also it's very difficult for a first-time author to get a traditional publishing contract, because that industry has consolidated just like everything else has consolidated. And they don't want to take a chance on an unknown author unless that person brings with them a huge platform, like, thousands of social media fans, already been in the news. They already have almost like a sure thing that if the book is going to sell. So I really focus on self-publishing, and with that, you have the flexibility of being able to publish faster. And you also have total control over your book. No one is telling you what needs to be included or not. No one's telling you what the price should be. You set your own price within reason, obviously. But that's one of the reasons I like self-publishing. And it doesn't stop you from getting a traditional contract down the road. I think one of the really popular ones, Marie Kondo, that Art of Tidying Up, which was so big. I think she originally self-published that and then was picked up by a traditional publisher after it became very successful. So it's not an either or, but for me, self-publishing is a way to get your information out there in the fastest way possible. But also, what I do is I pull in, as we were talking about earlier, professional editor, professional layout person, professional book cover designer, because you don't want that book to look like you did it in your basement, right? You want it to look professional and match the brand that you're trying to put out into the world. So, so even though we self-publish, we still pull in professionals to do those things that only they know how to do really the right way.
Right. And if you're limited on funds, then, because like there are professional editors and layout or design, whatever designers, book cover designers on like Fiverr or something like that you could use that are really good. They're actually really good, I'm sure. Not that I've done anything yet, but I've seen them look at it and they look, whatever. But also too, if you're creative and you really want to get into staying within your own, like keeping it your own, you could go on Canva and create your own design for a book cover. As well. And because I love doing that kind of stuff personally. I love going on Canva and doing my own thing. So that's an option. And I was also going to ask you, there's a book, I don't know if they still publish it or not, but it's a book about publishing companies. It's like this thick. And I remember getting one, and I remember like trying to understand what, finding these publishing companies or whatever. It's not, most of those publishing companies go out of business here and there and, whatever. So the book is kind of I think possibly they might be online. I haven't done any research on that recently, but Do you also have something in your side pocket of publishers that you can connect people with if they decided they wanted to go to a publisher? Maybe they have already published their book, or they just got done working with you and they're ready to put it out, but they're considering, going to another publisher like you're talking about. Do you
Yeah, good question. I don't have a standard list that I send people to.
Okay.
Usually if someone is wanting to go that route, we will look at the type of book that they are wanting to write and then seek out some publishers that work with those types of books, because believe it or not, most publishers now specialize in certain types of books, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there are a lot of them out there, and there's lots of different models, some hybrid and some traditional. And so we really take it on a case by case basis.
Okay.
There are some books though that are put out by I want to say it's Publishers Weekly magazine. I think that they publish a Bible, if you will, of publishers and things like that. But I would say definitely do your homework for one thing when you approach these publishers, because and look at the fine print of what it is that they're offering, because you can get burned by not understanding, if you will, what it is that they're offering versus what it is that you want to get out of that. And then one other thing about using some of the tools that are out there, yeah, you're right, you can use a Canva or something like that, but you also want to make sure that you have some knowledge of what a good book cover should look like. Yeah. Because you look at it online on Amazon or one of the other retail sites, it's in a very small thumbnail size, and so the colors that you pick, the fonts that you pick, even the cover image that you pick have to show properly on those online sites, or people won't click on them. So it's not just let's put up something that looks good to you, but it should also fit what will attract your buyer.
Yeah, that's really good information. And just ask questions. I feel like if you just ask the questions, and I'm trying to ask the questions that somebody would be asking. So that's why I'm doing this. And then there's another piece to it, because I actually wrote a chapter in someone else's book, and I started my I haven't gotten anything for it yet because I don't know how to do it, but it's on there. So I have my Amazon author page up, but are you able to help people with getting that started? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. I help people get their author page up. Yes, absolutely. And really it's great because it's another way for you to advertise, if you will, without paying anything for advertising. Right. Those author pages are free. Right. And so you put that up there, and then if somebody clicks on your book and they get to see what other things you've done, you can connect your blog post. Like my author page, I've connected my blog post so that every time I post a blog, that shows up on my author page. You can post other images on your author page. So it really is a great tool for an author that is totally free.
That's interesting. I had no clue. Look what I learned today. Now I gotta figure out
how to go out there and populate your author page, Caroline.
Yeah. Oh God! All right, more stuff, because
you could put links to your podcast on there.
Oh man! And it's interesting. I mean, there's just like there goes my too much information overwhelmed brain again. Because there's just so much to learn, and I'm doing it all myself. So it's like when I hear this, I get excited, and then I'm like, I don't want to do it.
You have to prioritize. I
know, and I don't know what to prioritize anymore. That's all right. We'll figure it out. We're getting there.
That's right.
Yeah. So this was such good information, and I'm so glad I brought you on here, because this has been a struggle for me personally, for the last 20 years, basically overall. Yeah. And I'm so wanting to at least get started publishing my my poem book. But I'll get there.
Yeah, right.
I can put that on Amazon, and
that's right.
Yeah. So I'm really grateful that we decided to do this, and I reached back out to you because this is really good information for people to find out, because like as an individual who has no clue most of the time about how to do this, it's good to have somebody on their side. So
That's
here's
right.
somebody, here's a perfect somebody.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I like to tell people that I worry about all that publishing stuff. So all you have to worry about is getting the content out of your head. Out of your head.
Okay.
Right?
Thanks
Well,
a lot, Linda.
Yeah, it has certainly been a pleasure, Caroline. I so enjoyed our
too.
conversation today.
You too. And I want you to share one link, even though I'm going to put them out on YouTube and Anchor and so people can find them.
Yes.
If you could just share one link on how people can get in touch with you.
Sure. They can reach me at expertauthor411, the number 411.com. And my contact page has all of my social media links and everything, my phone and everything else that you need to get in touch with me.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Miss Linda. I appreciate you so much. And
thank
everyone, thank you for being here on the ride of my life and learning all about my crazy writing journey. And I hope to see you next week, whatever that means. Have a great moment wherever you are, and blessings. Take care.